Assessment was that it reached the level of an emergency, and we declared a county emergency yesterday, which would then trigger the state sending assessors in to try to determine at what level funding would go from there, FEMA or other related stuff. It was wonderful that the governor responded shortly after our request, and she also declared an emergency, which I think bodes well for, number one, our assessment, because she has people that have looked at the situation too. But there's still a long way to go. But what we wanted to do is make sure residents who are losing things, structural damage to their homes, basements flooded, not everybody has the best insurance coverage and, flood insurance, that, people are going to be hurt as a result of this. And so if, in fact, the assessments from the state show that there's that significant damage, then we might be eligible for FEMA funds and other dollars to help rectify the situation. And so you can look behind me and see county employees in there now trying to pump out water from pump houses that aren't supposed to have water in them in the first place. And if the water gets up to the point where it starts to bother the electrical systems there, then we could have major additional problems. So we're still fighting our way out of it. It's wonderful that we didn't get a lot of rain last night because it was predicted that we did. But we still got a long way to go to get back to normal. So we're happy with how quickly we've reacted, and super happy at how quickly the governor has initially reacted.
What does this say about what kind of infrastructure needs there still are then? Because it used to be a 100-year flood would cause 10-foot flooding on Southfield Freeway. We saw it a couple years ago.
Right.
So what needs to happen? What can happen?
Well, there are a number of things, but the main thing is our infrastructure is tremendously old. And I guess people could argue all day about the engineering, but when you have sewer systems that's just one system, whether it's stormwater or sewage, all in the same pipe, doesn't work real well when they get overly taxed. And obviously, you have too much rainwater coming in a short period of time. There's just nowhere for it to go. So it gets pumped back into the Ecorse Creek, and the Ecorse Creek is overflowing. So what does it do? Come right back out, and so it's just causing problems that will take days for the water level to go down if, in fact, we don't get significant additional rain. And the forecast looks to me like we'll have rain, in the next week or so. So we just pray for the best. But there is tremendous infrastructure work that needs to be done, I think, in terms of upgrading systems, but also building catch basins so that overflow water has somewhere to sit until the immediate crisis is over, and then it can flow back into the sewer system. But those are just major, major infrastructure costs, and those aren't even added into what we're talking about bridge and road infrastructures. I mean, at some point in life, you just have to pay the piper, and we're getting to the point now where there's just going to be massive costs in the future. But
does this speed up the planning to do those types of things? And where are we at on a timeline with stuff like that?
To be perfectly honest, that's really a secondary issue to the major infrastructure issue that people are concerned about now, which is the potholes, the roads, and the bridges that if we don't provide the maintenance, will be closed down. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting that those things aren't being worked on by the Great Lakes Water Authority and the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, but nothing's going to happen overnight there. It's a dollar issue.
So with the state of emergency declared, is there anything that's boots on the ground type of thing, or is this more long-term, getting the dollars you need to fix it?
Well, I wouldn't say long-term. What it does is immediately trigger assessments by the state to come down and help determine what we have been looking at and trying to determine. And if, in fact, that happens on the short term, then the governor has the options to deal with the federal government about FEMA dollars. And, people with a nasty basement right now are looking for some financial help to try to deal with the situation. And really sorry for those people where the water's created some structural damage to the actual house itself. So, we're hoping for the best. Yes, it will be a long process, but it's been cut a little shorter by the quick response of the state to the immediate problem, which I think is very important.
Can you dive in just a little bit more for the homeowners that are hearing this and say, "Oh my God, there might be some FEMA money"? What's that process? How do
Well,
do you know anything?
I don't want to get ahead of it because that's difficult, but what I would say is they need to definitely document the losses. They need to take pictures of everything. They need to keep those pictures. They need to send them to their local communities. And at some point later, we will gather those up, and that will be the basis, if we get to that point, for that to happen. And people, they just have to really remember, nobody's going to pay off a claim at some point in time if there's nothing tangible there that was done. So they need to take those pictures. And the other thing is, remember how foul the water is while you're in the process of cleaning out the basement. Don't wind up with typhus. It's nasty water, so make sure you're protecting yourself as you get that out. We don't want people to get sick or have a public health issue at the same time we have a flooding issue.
So the declarations of emergency benefit both the county and the individual?
Yeah, yes, they do. What we have done by declaring the emergency is saying our resources are tapped. There's stuff here that we can in our budget fix. We think it is an emergency. Please look at it and see if other dollars, either state or federal, can come in to supplement the issue that we have here. That's what an emergency is. And
a lot of times people have the visualization of some magic center with command center, Michigan State Police running the show. It's not to that point. This is more of just a dollars, let's assess type of situation. Right?
Assess the damage and figure out what we do from here, because most of the damage that we're looking at now is flooded basements and that. And it's not like, I don't even want to talk about other things that could happen, but structural problems to roads and bridges and that. That's not what we're talking about at this point. Most of the damage, and it's in the thousands of homes, so it really is significant. So just document it, get the information to your local, cities, and as the process runs its course, at least the documentation will be there if and when we get to the point where there's going to be some remuneration.
Do you have
What's your
any
best
help?
guess on a timeline for all that?
That's past my pay grade. But with any bureaucracy, it takes time. But obviously, we've jumped on it quickly with the declaration, and the governor has responded quickly. So far, nobody's, sitting around drinking coffee. Everybody's working.
Do you have any say in the hauling away of the stuff? We've been on streets with just lines of garbage.
Every city that I know of has contacted whoever their haulers were, whether they do it internally or they contract out, and they're trying to make arrangements for special pickups to get that stuff off of the street. They understand that it looks ugly and that at some point it'll be a health hazard. But like any emergency, it gets overloaded. Everybody's working, but they're focused on that, and I think that'll get itself taken care of.
I know you're extremely hands-on. I imagine you've been to these communities, you were looking at the damage. What goes through your mind when you're seeing what these people are dealing with?
It's just, it's just tough. People use basements for their man caves or woman caves or whatever. A lot of times have, good stuff there, and they use it. And when it gets wet and messed up like this, we're still, the ship hasn't risen for everybody in terms of the economy getting better. And so there's still people hurting, and unfortunately you really feel bad when somebody who's already hurting is hurt again with an emergency. And, we're in the people business, or there's no reason to be here. So we just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to provide whatever service we can to people that take a hit.
Does stuff like this, incidents like this, take away or delay efforts to fix roads, other things?
No, not really. There are different pots of money to do things. This is not going to change our schedule for road repairs and stuff this year, or infrastructure repairs. It's possible that there could be some roads that have been damaged. I don't know at this point, but because of the water are in a little worse shape than it would have been before. But it's too early to assess that.
One of the things that we see all the time with floods like this is people then realize that their insurance doesn't cover the damage. What are your thoughts on more conversation, more open dialogue with consumers and their companies about trying to understand what is and what is not covered?
I think that's valid, a valid concern. I know lots of times flooding in the basement or sewer backups are not covered in insurance policies, and I'm sure people quite often don't know that until a claim comes. I would not disagree with you that some conversation about that would probably be helpful for citizens to know more about exactly what their policies call for and don't.
Has there been any, has there been any determination made on whether residents will be asked to increase taxes for road repairs, infrastructure repairs?
Well, other than the governor's proposal to raise the gas tax for it, I mean, that's what's on the table now. I hear people complain about it all the time. I also hear people say it's probably a necessary ingredient, but you also hear people complain about it, and my problem with that is they don't offer an alternative. And as a manager and as an executive, I got to get things done. If you have an approach that'll work, and it's the only approach out there, I gravitate toward that approach. If there's another one that seems to make more sense, then let's hear it. But what you often hear in this business is the complaints about what's not being done without a solution to the problem.
I'm talking about the county roads, fixing those. Do you have enough money in the pot to do your share?
Every year we get a little more money. We try to measure as scientifically as we can what roads need to be repaired, what roads need to be maintained so they don't get to the level of disrepair. But the answer is every year, if we optimally spend every dollar that we have for roads, overall our roads are still deteriorating. We're not receiving enough money to even break even. And so that's the critical problem to me is, yes, we'll get projects done, but if the overall condition of Wayne County roads is still going down yearly, obviously we haven't hit the break-even point, where we can move in the right direction. So, yes, we need a boatload of money, and we need a solution, and the only solution I'm hearing right now is the governor's, so I support it.
Nothing as far as residents increasing taxes in the county for residents to...
I don't think so. I mean, even when we talk about federal disaster money, what people don't realize is that's our money. I mean, it's not money that fell out of the sky. We pay federal taxes, and in situations like this, we ought to get a return on that investment if, in fact, the damage is significant. So, yeah, I mean, I have no idea in the world about, an increase in taxes. We at the county try to do everything we can to manage the dollars we have better so that we can eke out a better performance for the taxpayers' dollars. But